Okay everybody, hopefully you've made it through the first 5 chapters, and now it just gets easier and I think a lot more fun. So chapter 6 is going to go through some of the effects in the program, and the first one is going to start out with speed. The speed button is in the dashboard over to the right. It's called the retiming sections. If you open it up, you see slow. There's an arrow there, 50%, 25%, 10%. So different amounts of slowing a clip down, speeding them up, twice as fast, 4 times as fast, up to 20 times as fast. Normal, so if you want to go back to normal. Hold, which is going to put a hold frame in the middle of your clip. So it's kind of like freeze frame. Blade speed, which we'll go through in a little bit. Custom, which is going to give you a menu. You can play your clip backwards. You can reset the speed. You can do an automatic speed. You can ramp up the speed or ramp down the speed. You can do an instant replay, rewind, jump cut, and work with the video quality. So it does a lot of things in this menu. Notice at the bottom it says show retime menu, Command R. So if you pick a clip and you hit Command R, it'll show you it's starting at 100%. And I'm going to zoom in with the Command plus so you can see what I'm talking about. Command plus. So the first thing in the book it does is tell you just about how speed works. And so on this clip, which is 9452, if I played it,
meaning it takes on a whole new look.
Then you can see it's playing kind of, the blades are going pretty slow, right?
Meaning it takes on a whole new look.
So if I want them to go faster, I just need to speed it up. I can go to the arrow right here on the clip and do it from here. So if I just go fast 20 times, it's going to make it really short.
Meaning it takes...
So I'd have to drag that clip so it connects with the other one. Or I can do a custom speed. So I can do it from here. I can also do it from the menu over here, custom. It's the same menu. So if I bring it to 500 times the speed, hit return again, the clip shortens up. So let's watch it.
Meaning it takes...
But what I can do is drag the clip over, and basically it'll be a longer clip of the helicopter blade going faster.
Meaning it takes on a whole new look.
Very simple to use. So the next thing we're going to do is work on making a dramatic shot using a speed change, and in this case we're going to use what's called blade speed. So if you find Arial's 1301B, what I like to do is use this menu on the left, so you get the library of all the clips, and it's called the timeline index. So I'm just showing all the video, or I can show all the shots and find that clip, and then it'll flip right to it. Or you can search your whole project, but I don't like to do that. So 1301B has this shot here, and it's not the whole shot, it's part of the shot. One of the things I like to do, and it doesn't say this in the book right now, but you can right-click in that shot and say Reveal in Browser. What it'll do is it'll show you that entire shot up here. So you can see there's part of that shot, it goes over the lake. So in a dramatic effect, we could be flying over the lake, flying over the top, and then slowing down, and then it'll make it more dramatic. So if we lift this from the storyline, right-click, lift from storyline. Now we can maybe see this whole clip. Here we go. When it turns red, that's the end of the clip. So there's the whole clip. Now we can listen to the audio and then decide where we want to slow it down. So let's see.
Eye-opener for me.
Okay, so I already had some kind of markers here. So he says eye-opener, and there's a marker there. So I'm going to go ahead and choose blade speed. Let me select the clip. So it's yellow around there. And my playhead has to be where I want to blade speed it. Blade speed. So now I got 2 speed segments, the first one and the second one. Now what I'm going to do is make another segment as he's flying over this cliff. Maybe right there. So again, make sure it's selected and then hit blade speed. So I've got 3 segments here. So what I want to do is shorten it down so that when the music swells, it's going to slow, the whole thing's going to slow down.
Eye-opener for me.
So around here where there's this other blue marker is where I want to slow it down. So what I can do is just drag this handle over. And while I'm doing that, I don't need all this other video either. Get it over there. And then what's happening right now, if I stop for a minute, there's an orange bar there and it should start rendering that speed, and it just did. So let me watch what I did here.
Time I go up, it's a new discovery. It's a new, eye-opener for me. Every time we may be flying over.
So that was very cool. It sped up and then it slowed down right where the music changed. So let me play that one more time.
Time I go up, it's a new discovery. It's a new, eye-opener for me. Every time we may be flying.
So you see that a lot on TV, and there's some stuff in the book also about some finer tuning editing. I'll let you go through that, but they're talking about the frames in between these transitions. You can double click on those and you get a speed transition and a source frame that you can move around. So that's some kind of fine tweaking I'll let you go through. So the next part of the book is exercise 6.2.2, and this is all about effects, and these are really fun. And so actually it's 6.2.1, experimenting with video effects. Now the video effects are in the dashboard to the right. If you hover over these things over here, just before the camera it says show or hide effects browser. So let me show those. So I have a lot of extra ones because I use another plugin. Some of them are from Ripple Training, and then there's another one I use to get some extra ones in there, so I'll show you those too. But you can hover over them and it kind of previews what the effect looks like. So what I did right now is in my search on the bottom, I typed VIG for vignette. I went over clip 9424, and now I can kind of preview what those look like. It's kind of neat. So if I get rid of that vignette thing, and I can see all my different previews. So I can preview black and white, noisy film, artifacts in the film. Here's some bokeh effects, colorizing it. And these are just starting points because all of these can be changed as well. So here's some, a Ripple Training one that has some different kinds of textures. There's an earthquake one where everything is shaky cam. This is pretty cool. It brings a lot of black into it. So I have like a lot of them. Night vision, so it goes on and on. Some of them I use a lot. Let's see. I use the vignette a lot. I like the sci-fi one because it gives you kind of a green sci-fi look into it. So I encourage you to go through these and kind of get used to them. Another cool one is tile. So you can pick how many squares of the clip you want on the screen at the same time. And you can change that number as well. Then there's the vignettes. Then I've got a whole bunch of other ones. FX Factory Pro, that's another software I use. I buy plugins from for certain projects. So for example, it doesn't have a preview, but there's glow text, and let's see what else is in here. Here's FX Factory Pro, so I own a whole bunch of different effects in here. So this is kind of a neat one. Edge work. It redraws everything. LED lights. So you might check out FX Factory Pro if you're interested. I also have text effects in there from that. Oh, that's from Ripple Training. And notice in the bottom there's audio effects. So we're going to be getting to this as well. When we change the sound of the vocals or sound effects or anything, all of the plugins are here. And also regular plugins from Logic are in here. For example, Channel EQ is in there. So we're going to be able to use all the plugins that if you've used that program before that you're used to seeing. So let's start off by doing a vignette on here to kind of show the helicopter and kind of emphasize it and see what we can do. So I'm going to go ahead and type VIG again, so I don't have to search everything. So there's a vignette. Now all I need to do for this is I can just drag it on there. And if I show my effects in my inspector, which is the second to the right button, I go on video. Now there's my vignette. And if I open the triangle, I'm going to see different choices on it. So I can change the blur amount, I can darken it, I can change the size of it, which is important, and the fall off. There we go. So my vignette now, and you can see it wants to render. So let me let it render for a second. It'll render that video and the effect together. There we go. Let's see what I got.
Look what I saw today, and look at what adventure I went on.
So it looks very different. Now I can also change the location of this vignette. So if I want it down here, I can actually follow the helicopter as well. So as it's coming here, maybe I want to move the vignette around. So let's see if I can do that. If you hover your mouse over any of these things, you'll see a triangle, and it says, or it's actually a diamond, it says add a keyframe. So if I want to move the position, I can check these diamonds, and then maybe move this later on and have this vignette move down there. You notice the values moved for X and Y. So when I play it back, let's see if this works.
Look what I saw today, and look at what adventure I went on.
So it actually moved with me. Another thing I could be doing during that time is making the vignette smaller. So maybe if I start here and click size, and go a little bit later and make the size smaller. I probably should have clicked fall off as well. But let's see what that does. I'm gonna let it render for a sec. Okay, rendered out.
Look what I saw today, and look at what adventure I went on.
That is really neat. So you can do all kinds of really fun things with the automation. Now, if you don't like your automation or your vignette, there's a hooked arrow on the right. You can reset it all and start over. So let's say I wanted to do a better job of tracking that. So I'm just going to click all of these buttons over here where I want to start. And then come a little bit later, now I'm going to move everything. I'm going to move the circle down, maybe darken it up, maybe make it smaller, move the fall off over to there. And now let's see what happens.
Look what I saw today, and look at what adventure I went on.
And that's even before it rendered. It still gave me kind of a preview. It's a little bit jerky, but if I let it render out and watch it, it'll look a little smoother.
Wow. Look what I saw today, and look at what adventure I went on.
And in that case, what I would have done is also faded that out earlier in this transition right here, so it faded out a little bit earlier. Now I'm seeing the circles because I've got vignette selected, but if I just get my mouse off of that, then you can see it without the circles around it. Now I've got, what I'm using right now looks like a Ripple training vignette, so I probably need to choose one from the program so I don't have that marker on it. So just ignore that. So this next section is about the order of effects, and the book uses an example that I think is kind of hard to understand. So what I'm going to use is the tile effect. So using that same clip, 9424, I've got the vignette there. Somehow now I got a Ripple training flag in there, so I don't think it's supposed to be there, just ignore it. But if I select the tile and put it in there, it defaults to 9 tiles, and you can see if I go to tile here, the amount of tiles I can have as many or as few as I want. I can have like 2 or 3 or a whole bunch. So the order of my effects is vignette and then tile. So tile, the bottom one affects the ones above it. So basically I've got 9 vignettes as well right now. But check out what happens if I switch the order of these. I'm just going to drag tile above it. So vignette is now on the bottom. Now I've got 1 vignette because that affects all the ones above it. So you have to be cognizant of the order of effects. And if you ever take a test, they're going to have different orders and you're going to have to pick the right one. And one of the ones they like to use is the Gaussian effect, so black and white. So if you have, or if you desaturate something. So let me find Gaussian, G-A-U, Gaussian, and throw that on there. So I've got this Gaussian blur going on, and I can have the amount of blur. So it's on the bottom, it's affecting all of them together. If I move it to the top, what does it do? First of all, I didn't move it. Let's see. There we go. So now it just affects each picture within itself instead of the entire thing. Another one is black and white. You can try, what I would do to understand this is try different ones in different orders and then see how it makes sense to yourself. So that's what that's how I came up with this tile example. So again, if vignette is second, vignette's going to affect the whole thing. Vignette is first. Sometimes they don't want to switch. There we go. So it looks totally different now. So I would look at the vignette and the tile and see if you can make sense of that for yourself. So next we're going to learn how to use a mask. At the end of the project there's a clip called GoPro 9 and you can see the helicopter's landing, but there's this sort of distracting part off the runway that we would probably not want to see. We'd want to concentrate on the helicopter. So it'd be nice if something there wasn't showing. And again, I've got this Ripple training stuff somehow popped up in my software, so just try to ignore that for now. But what I'm going to do is put a mask on here. So I'm going to go down here in my typing mask, MA. You could find it by searching and put it over the GoPro thing. Okay. But before I do that, I want to do something else. I want to copy this clip. So Command C, put my plate at the beginning of it, and Command V to paste it. So I've got 2 copies of this clip now, because I'm going to mess with one of them and then leave the bottom one. So just for now, I'm going to disable the bottom one, hit V. Another way you can do that is right click, and you can see that V right there for disable and enable. So now I'm just seeing the top clip. Now I'm going to put the mask on here. It gives me something to work with. So I'll select this. I've got these dots. So what I want to do is kind of cover up this section of that I don't want to be looking at, and I want that to be blurry or something else. So cover that up a little bit, and then maybe like that. Then I'm going to use a Gaussian blur so I can kind of blur it out. So I'll type G-A Gaussian blur, put that on there. Okay, so I can, that's a little bit too much, so maybe a little bit less. So there's the full thing, and just make it a little bit more blurry. And then I'll re-enable the bottom one so it blends those two together. So if I need more Gaussian blur on this now, I can blur it out more. So however I want it to look, or if I want a bigger mask, get back that there and make a bigger mask on it. Looks like that might work a little bit better. Something like that. Okay, so now the attention would be more on the helicopter than not on that weird thing on the bottom. Let's see what that looks like.
At the end of the day, see some of the work that we've shot that day, and then be able to kind of relive that and go, yeah, that's exactly what I saw.
Another example of that could also be when you're trying to hide logos. It just came to my mind. I could have used the mask on the helicopter right there to just put a mask around the logo if I needed to blur it for some reason. So I'm going to disable that bottom one again. And the top one, let me take the mask and move this whole thing. So let me first of all get rid of the blur. There we go. Go back on the mask. And I can just work on the logo now. And then take the blur in there. So if I need to blur the logo out, I could do that as well. So let's see what that looks like now.
At the end of the day, see some of the work that we shot that day, and then be able to kind of relive that and go, yeah, that's exactly
the blur. So I'd have to move the position of that that effect. So, but you can see what I'm talking about. So it lands there, and then the blur is over that kind of. So with transitions, there's all kinds of different ones, and some of them are editable and some are not. Some of them have drop wells, meaning you can select some of the video that go in the squares as the transition goes over. So some of my favorite things are selecting them all and hitting Command T so that you can create a transition on all of them. Or you need to know when the clip runs out of footage, like this one starts at the beginning, so there's no extra handle. Hit Command T, it's going to give you a warning saying that it's going to shorten up a story right here. That's okay if it's B-roll. Usually if it's on the main storyline, it may not be okay, so you have to think about it before you do it. So in that case, I can do it. So transitions are easy. The main thing is use them carefully, and mainly you're going to be using the dissolve because the cross dissolve looks really nice, but hard cuts are fine too. So cross dissolves are great on B-roll. A lot of the main storyline, you're just going to leave it without transitions. These crazy ones are more for like music videos or artsy projects. So the next part of the book talks about some of the really fun tools that I really like, which is transform. And you can cut, crop, and use Ken Burns effects in this section. So this is how it works. If I have a shot here and I would like to, well, he's talking add some other things. See what he's saying.
virtually every time I go up, it's a new discovery. It's a new, eye-opener for me.
So let's say instead of just the B-roll, I wanted to add some more B-roll here. What I can do is, I'm going to go ahead and disable that for a minute, is I can add some other shots. So I can take this one and then hit over here, there's these tools. If I click on the square or maybe the arrow, transform, crop, and distort. Transform will add little dots, and what I'm going to do here is instead of at 100%, I'm going to make it 75% so you can see the dots. So I can move this around anywhere I want on the screen and change the size. I can also rotate it if I want. And all of these things move in the inspector as well, so I can scale it here also. So for example, and if you don't like what you did, just hit the hooked arrow. So what I can do, for example, if I want to start the shot coming in here, and then I can, for example, hit the diamond on the position tool. I can hit any of these diamonds. Those are making keyframes. And go a little bit into the shot, and then I can make it maybe smaller and move it over here. So this is what happens when I just did that. And right where I made it smaller, maybe I'll bring in another image. So maybe I'll bring in some more B-roll. So okay, let's see, how about that shot? Okay, so I'll bring in some B-roll right there. So that one's smaller, and then Q. So now notice how big this is. I'm gonna make it the same length as the clip, and then I'm gonna make this one smaller. So he'll come in and click that and transform this one smaller, and maybe put it over here. So now this is what I got. And then maybe as that happens, maybe I'll do a big shot of the lake. So put that one in. I can put as many layers as I want basically. And since that's on the top, that's all I'm seeing. I can move it to the bottom, or I'll transform this as well. Maybe put it right there. So here's what I have now. So you can be really creative with shots doing that. You can even use transitions there. So at the end of these, if I hit Command T, they'll kind of cross dissolve into each other. So let's see what that looks like now. And as it gets more complicated like that, it's going to take a little bit longer to render. There we go. So I just made a completely interesting shot out of something that wasn't just there. So some other things you can do, I'll use a new clip here. There's transform, but there's also crop. So crop works like it always works, just, you know, for pictures. Maybe what I'll do is hit done there. Let me pick one where cropping makes more sense. So let me go back to a different shot. Get everything in here. So let's see. All right, maybe this shot over here. So I'm going to zoom in to here. You can see this shot. Maybe I want to just crop out the bottom of that because I don't want to show. I don't want to show this little corner. So on that shot, if I go, so I'm on crop, I could crop it out like that. Notice how now it's too small. So maybe at that point I could transform it and just fill it up like that. Move it down a little bit. So it's a totally tighter shot now.
In that way, from an aerial standpoint.
You can't really tell that I did that. The other nice thing that's in this section, besides crop and transform, is Ken Burn. So under the crop section, you'll see 3 choices: trim, crop, and Ken Burns. So Ken Burns gives you a start and stop frame. So in this case, I'm going to be, let's see, I start, if I can grab the start, there we go. Maybe start on the helicopter and then zoom out. So I'm going to start in the green and end in the red. Let's see what that looks like.
In that way, from an aerial standpoint.
So I zoomed out, essentially. So zoomed out like that. If I wanted the opposite, let me go back to Ken Burns there. There's a little arrow here. I can zoom in, so I can start wide and go close.
That way, from an aerial standpoint.
So it's basically the opposite of what, so it tells you start and end versus start close and end big. So that's another nice thing. Now if you did that and you don't want it, you can always go to the inspector, and then if you can see Ken Burns is in this thing right here where it says crop. If you reset, it's going to go back to the original. So these hooked arrows are always to reset everything. There's one more thing in there, which is distort, which gives you like a Z-axis kind of thing. So you can go do some weird things with it like that. So it changes the camera angle like as if it's on a crane, for example. Okay, now that we've learned a little bit about compositing, there's a little shortcut menu. If you right-click on any clip, you get Show Video Animation. What that is some of the shortcuts here that are also available here in the inspector. If you notice on the bottom here, there's opacity, and it's also here on the shortcut menu. So if you double-click in a section, it's available. For example, opacity, you can change the opacity of the top clip, or you can fade the opacity in or out on a clip. You can do that in the inspector as well, but it's kind of a nice shortcut here. In fact, as I move this along, if you look in the inspector, you can see I've just automated the opacity button right there. Another nice thing about this, you can copy and paste things like that you do to a clip. So what I can do with this clip is hit Edit, Copy, and go to another clip, and go Edit, Paste Attributes. This clip is going to ask me what I want to paste into this next clip. So if it's the color that I change, or if I transform something or change the size, all I did is change the opacity. So anything, or I can check all of them and hit paste into the next clip. So actually what it did is it pasted that opacity change in there. Another example of that, if I was in this clip and I did something to it like change the color, we haven't learned this yet, but if I show the color board and I overexpose the clip and I want to put that on the next clip, I can do the same thing. I can edit copy, go to the next clip, edit paste attributes, and pick color. And now I've matched the oversaturation between the two clips using paste attribute. So if you have a special color look, this is a great way to bring it into the rest of your project. And one more feature at the end of this chapter is compositing clips, and this saves a ton of time. If you have a lot of levels of clips or text or something and you want to just move it, it's easier to make it all one composite or one compound clip. So for example, I could take this clip here and put some B-roll on it. So I'll just take some B-roll, put that on there. And then maybe on top of that, I also have some text, which we haven't learned yet, but go to the T button and put some text in there. So I'll put a lower third in there. I gotta put my playhead over here. So I've got a title now. There we go. Okay, so let's say I might have to move this later. What I can do is select anything I want and right click and make a compound clip. And then it's going to ask me the name of it. So I can pick a name. What that is, you're going to see the same thing that I just made, but now I can move it all together as one clip. If I need to edit it, I can just click on the icon and it'll show me all of the compound clip elements like that. If I click the arrow to the left, it brings me back to my project where I was. So compound, I could compound as much as I want. What I would encourage you to do is like pick different clips and then compound them together and see what it looks like, because that's the best way to learn about compound clips. And I believe that's the end of chapter 6. The next chapter is chapter 7, which is finishing the edit, which is a lot about text, and it's pretty easy and fun because there is on-screen editing and color, which there's color in this program, and then there's other programs I use such as DaVinci.